It was weird to see Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists conference. His ensuing diatribe against black people could be seen as weird, except that his othering and despising of black people are normal, and not just for Trump, for America. There is little new in Trump or what he says. His rhetoric is a rehash of right-wing rhetoric heard for over 170 years in the United States. It's not correct to say that Trump says the quiet parts out loud. Right-wingers have been saying their feelings of othering and despising black people out loud for a very, very long time. What may sound new to some people is Trump and his surrogates' rhetoric that Vice President Kamala Harris isn't black, or she turned black, or whatever they sputter at the moment. The right-wingers' confusion about Harris speaks to their racial identity politics. In simplest terms, identity politics is that one is defined by one's race, and race is an either-or existence, meaning there is no, or definitely should not be, race mixing. Race is a fictional concept. Race is a factional concept. Both of those statements are true and mutually supportive. The concept of race was invented as, and is used as, a tool to divide, segregate, and oppress other people. People are either white or they aren't white, and from that distinction, people can be categorized. Race is a tool that fits perfectly in the right-wing toolbox. The primary goal of the right wing is a two-tiered society with power concentrated in one segment of society. Racial segregation, social economic, if not legal, is a foundational power structure of right-wing societies. This is a pattern repeated around the world and across history. Trump, naturally, uses racial identity as a tool. He has difficulty grasping the reality that Kamala Harris has both Indian and black heritage, because that doesn't fit his right-wing paradigm. One has an identity of a race, not a mix of races. Trump has a variety of prejudices, to be sure, but all of them share the pattern of binary thinking that divides people into two tiers of value. It's an us-them distinction drawn on multiple lines, but each distinction, race, nationality, sex, religion, and so on, is an either-or. The us are obviously the better part of the two-tiered distinction, the them being othered and deprived of power. This is seen as a moral imperative across the right wing. Either-or and us-them distinctions are most useful when the dividing lines are easily discernible and able to be sharply drawn. Hence, for racial distinction, the one-drop rule has been a tool of white supremacy. One is either all white or not at all. For Trump and for those who support him, you are either white or you are other. Any talk about being mixed race is superfluous or dishonest. One drop and you're not white, period. Okay, so why Trump's line of attack that Harris is switching, read that as pretending, to being black? Harris isn't switching or pretending, of course. She's never been confused or confusing about her parentage. But in the racial identity politics of the right wing, the only reason one would claim to be black is to try to rise above your station, to claim a legitimacy you clearly don't possess. Thus, when the media started pointing out the reality that Harris is the first black female presidential nominee of a major party, Trump just couldn't take that in as anything other than uppity pretense by Harris. It's weird, I know, but such is the fictional, factional thinking of the right wing. Trump rose to prominence in reactionary right-wing circles when he embraced the birtherism claims about Barack Obama. Lying about women and questioning their identity is what Trump does. Earlier this year, he tried and failed to create a birther conspiracy about U.S.-born Nikki Haley. Maybe Trump hoped to start a similar line of attack against U.S.-born Harris. That probably attributes too much strategic thinking to Trump. It's more likely that he simply doesn't know what to do with someone who isn't white, especially a woman who is smart, accomplished, charismatic, and who is openly laughing at Trump's absurdities. It appears that being laughed at may be Trump's biggest fear. Another factor that certainly contributes to American right-wingers' confusion about Harris is their particular contempt for black Americans. The stain of America's institutional slavery still tarnishes society, which is why right-wingers want to forbid discussion of its reality. Right-wingers want us to ignore the history of slavery, while they still maintain the fiction that blacks are an inferior race and deserve to be treated as such. Thus, people from India are clearly not white and inferior, but hey, at least they aren't black. The frequently heard refrain that every other immigrant group can succeed, but that blacks can't succeed, is part of the worldview of people like Trump. Therefore, it is logical, if you can call it that, in that worldview to believe that Harris could only be identifying as black to pander for the votes of black people. Certainly, right-wingers cannot grasp that Harris could be proud of both her Indian and African through Jamaica ancestry. It's a tangled web, these right-wing fictions about race, but this is their racial identity politics. I'm only scratching the surface. Trump flails to find a means to attack Harris, but this isn't about Trump. It's about the right wing and its old culture wars. Harris is the new target. Trump is no more than the current fetish object of the right wing's obsession with a two-tiered society of good and the other, of us and them. Thank you for listening to the Insert Philosophy Here podcast. Please subscribe and go to insertphilosophyhere.com to see my other offerings. You can support the Insert Philosophy Here project with a donation at ko-fi.com. Thank you for listening and see you next time.